Hi everyone, it's Peter from PS Sound, and this video is going to be one of those that people like when we show a bit of nightmare and how we fix things. This transporter, what is it, the latest, it's literally like brand new. This is gonna need some work because the owner came to us a few weeks ago to check what's happening with it, how we could make it sound better. And we literally had like an hour to give him a demo in our cars and to check the situation with this, but we had another car coming, so I couldn't even change settings or anything. But then, yeah, we realized the struggle was real. So what does this van have right now? It has a really fancy cam with head unit, which shocked me how expensive it is, because we don't fit head units these days. Everyone uses their phones for music playback, and most cars have built-in navigation. Navigation was probably the most important part for the client, but he also wanted to spend on getting a good source, a good head unit that has good sound coming out of it. He has Apple CarPlay, all those fancy things, but you know, £1,300 on a cam with head unit is a bit steep, a bit crazy. But it is what it is. At least that's great, and it has built-in DSP function, so it could have been set up acceptably well. They could have run the front end active, but they wired it up passive, because most transporters have factory locations, and people use the factory locations, which are not great, because the tweeter is right there, very off-axis, firing straight into the dash, and then the mid bass is so down low, to the time the door is shut, it's firing onto the side of your leg, so you hear absolutely no mid-range out of that. It's absolutely pointless. And when I see people using really fancy looking 3D printed mounting, and then it's aimed so the sound comes to your head, I just want to pull my hair out. It's just all marketing bullshit. Sorry, if you're one of those, do that marketing, maybe rethink it, because you are just fooling customers. It's not going to sound better. That's the point when people do nice looking AP-less for mids and tweets. And these vans really need a mid-range, like pretty much most cars. They need a wideband or a mid-range just to get it up ear height, you know, without any obstructions, because from down there you will never really hear any mid-range, and mid-range is the most important part of any system. You want to hear, you know, clear vocals, then the mid-range has to be installed somewhere up there. And client was worried about it because he lives at an area where he doesn't want anything on display much, although the car is well tinted. It's so dark on the side glass that I don't even think that's legal. Who knows, but it's not a problem. But it needs sorting out, because the nightmare in this car was really that they put the crossovers, the passive crossovers, somewhere underneath the glove box, and this car has like one of the most expensive Rockford Fosgate two-way sets, running passive, but they wired up the right mid bass with the left tweeter, and they wired up the left mid bass with the right tweeter. Because when he was down here a few weeks ago and I tried to play with balance and levels and things like that, I was like, hang on a second, I pulled balance to one side, the other side was still playing, and then that's when I realized that, hang on, something is terribly wrong here. So if a shop wants to make money, and that's the classic, they sell expensive equipment, and they don't even test the absolute basics, just to test if left is left, right is right, if both mid bass and tweeters are at the same place, both, I mean the same side, and it wasn't. So that was the point when I was like, you know, I can't even play with the head unit settings with the EQ or anything like that, just to make the system a little bit more pleasant, because it was shouting for some serious fixing. At least they were not running the speaker set from the head unit's amplifier, because they fitted two JL amps down here, a 4-channel, and the monoblock underneath it. Yeah, some self-tapping screws, more wood screws, more MDF. Yeah.
Some foam to avoid rattles.
Well, yeah, at least. And they have a bit of tape around the power cables instead of ferrules, but a bit of 3M tape. Yeah, it can see improvement. And we have a GL 10W3 in a sealed box where they had to cut out the steel of the seat so it can breathe forward, and hopefully that's just fine. We don't have to address, but our plan was to do three-way, so we will have mid-range on the pillars, but that needs amplification and needs DSP capability because that cannot run three-way plus sub. So we are going to swap out that top JL to a Helix P6, which is a 6-channel amplifier that will run the front end, and it's an 8-channel DSP, so we will have an output to this subwoofer. So first thing, we will have to strip out this amplifier, check this mounting, because it's nice and solid, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's ooh, well, even the amp, what is it?
Yeah, probably they use self-tappers and they don't hold anymore in the
Well, where's the screw?
MDF.
I can't even see a screw in it.
Probably they fell off. Yeah.
Wow, well, they shook out. It's not even mounted, is it? Oh, the whole thing. Yeah, it's just only that bracket holds it somehow. So we knew that, you know, amplification mounting would require sorting out here because this is not great at all. And we wouldn't leave our amplifier mounted like this, that's for sure. And then once we saw that, we also have to look at the mid-bass mounting because we have no idea what they did, but we can see that that door card is not lined up quite well. We don't want rattles or things like that, so we will have to address that. And I will look at the pillars, have to take the tweeters out and install mids and tweets on the pillars. So the other side of the top of the rack might have been holding for a while, because you can see that the screw was going in there on the right hand side, on the left hand side it was going under it. Look at those two screws going through. That's what was supposed to hold this thing. Nice lineup. Were they in such a rush? Did they install it in like what, 2 hours? Just quick, bish, push, push. Yep, as we expected. No ferrules. What's that for, right? We don't need ferrules. Nice and reliable system. There you go, 2021, huh? We know this style. It's really fancy. Look at that bit of hot glue and then deadening over it. Wicked. Bullets, at least they put some 3M tape over it. But that is something special. If I can, nah. Hell knows what's happening underneath it. Oh my God. That will be great. So the sub box somehow came out. They didn't even have time to hoover the box out because they were cutting the hole with the jigsaw. Easy to tell, they cut into that. There's dust everywhere. At least the box wasn't leaking, but then all that dust ends up in the poor coil of the sub. So at least it's still working, which is a good thing. There's a bit of a damage there. Probably the way they dropped it into position in the underseat location, because it was just sitting there. It's not a simple thing to fit a sub there, that's for sure, I get that, but still, it's bad enough. So now when we have to fix everything in this car in 2 days, what do we do about this? And look at that tweeter installation at its best. It's exactly what we had to fix last week. This is a tweeter from an 800-pound set. Look at that amount of hot glue and then the deadening that was pulled over it, just extra. So what, if the hot glue is not fixing it, then what? The deadening is going to hold it in place? What was the mentality behind it? What's the mindset? It's beyond me. My God. So we had to look at the mid-bass situation as well, just to you know, weigh up the situation, and just self-tappers on a plastic mounting. No treatment to the door whatsoever. There's zero inside. So yeah, this has to be done. So this door card came off easy, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because you found that the clips were not holding at all.
Yeah, probably they tried to put them back in. They broke some of them.
And then yeah, they were not holding anymore at all. We don't know whether it was discussed on the job that the doors would be treated or not. I'm not too sure.
They are treated, look.
Okay. Some of it, yeah, but we don't know whether the client started it himself or not, you know. But yeah, we have to deal with this door in and outside everywhere. door cards because there's nothing on them, and you know, then the driver is just playing into that big hollow space, everything rattles, so it's not fun. So the inside of the door has been deadened now. Come on, Eddie, knock it.
Which side?
It doesn't matter. But it doesn't matter whether you knock it from the outside or the inside, but it's so easy to hear the difference. It's nice and dead, and then nick on the other side, like a nice barrel. Yeah, so that's done now. We let a bit of 10 mil closer from behind the driver, so when the speaker plays, it doesn't blast so much energy to the outside. We could cover the whole thing, but we are very limited on time, to be fair. But what really was needed is done now. We can put back the inner skin, which needs deadening as well, and then we can mount the driver. Pillars. So the mid is going to be pretty off axis. From the camera, actually, it looks more on axis than what it is in reality, but it's still going to play up high enough. And then the tweeter is more on axis. I managed to sunk it into the pillar as far as possible, pretty much all the way. There's 1 millimeter behind the ring, and the ring is deep enough to give clearance for the tweeter. Same way the mid-range was mounted in a way. There you go, little trick. You just put a bit of something, few millimeter to the back of the magnet, so it gives you the tolerance. And yes, it's pretty tight. Not many mid-range driver would fit there, but with this one, then we are not going to be so much coming out, and then the tweeter will be also blended in. So once it's all built up and retrimmed, it should look acceptable, not shouty, I guess. I almost forgot to take footage of this. So now the new rack that Nick built bolts down to existing mounting points where we have a bracket coming out of the rack here. No, over there, there's a bracket bolted to the bottom side of this rack there, and then at the back, Eddie, where was the other one?
In that corner, but it's hidden. This
yeah,
corner.
that one. So it's a bit tight to get to it, but you know, that's bolted down, that's not going to go anywhere. And then once that amp is wired in, as you see, cables terminated with ferrules, no more copper strands hanging, making unreliable systems. Then after that, we can put this plate on into the inserts, bolt it down, and then the next amplifier can come on the top, and then do all the wiring into that. This part is also important. I shared many videos about pillar fabrication, and okay, that's just my take on how to build good sounding pillars, but I've never heard feedback from anyone else who used our techniques, whether you know they were hobby people or professionals, that it didn't work well. When you see people building tiny little pots for mid-range, yes, it's an easy solution when people don't want to get messy. But at the same time, when you can do proper fiberglassing and deal with resin, fiber feel, and all those really awful things, then yes, you can get way better sound when you make sure that the mid-range gets enough breathing space. So behind the driver, as we always, we chamfer out the mounting ring so it's not going to suffocate the basket. So this way it can easily flow and the airflow is not restricted. As you can see also, when you see companies just whacking fiber fill onto the surface of the pillar, don't get surprised if it separates, and even if it's trimmed, you may see problems underneath the trimming after a while. But then this way, as you can see, I drilled hundreds of holes. All that milkshake just flows through the holes, bonds together, and then of course we build up the front with fiber fill too. So the two sides bond together completely, clamping the plastic, and then yeah, it won't have a chance to separate. Plus everything is more rigid, less resonance. Well, this thing won't have any resonance and vibration, and we can also deaden the back of it with deadening material. So yeah, something like that. That's why our pillars take longer to build. Well, we haven't even noticed till now those connectors. It's worth to show it. Eddie was asking, what's wrong with these? These are those electrical little clip-in type crimps, which yes, in a house it's fine because there's nothing moving. I wouldn't do it. I would just rather solder those two cables together or use an inline crimp. Use an inline crimp. So we have to get rid of these because that's how they extended the cable. But I don't get it, because they use speaker cable there that's already under that, I think, is linked to the OEM loom. So we have to check what's happening underneath as well. Interesting. All right, I don't even know what the last part was that I managed to take footage of, but we gotta show this beauty before it goes in to the car. So as you can see, this tweeter mounting is ready for hot gluing, right, Eddie? That's our favorite thing. Let's just whack shitloads of glue on it. Yeah. Well, okay, we are lucky with this tweeter as well, because it has depth, and if it wants to focus on it, then you can see that it has those little bitey jaws, so once you push it in, it can't really pull out. But for that, you have to make the mounting ring exact, mind the tolerance of the trimming as well, and once you do that right, it pushes in, yeah, hard. You can't really take it out. I mean, yes, you can take it out, but it takes patience.
Much easier to take out than
if
it was, yeah,
super glued, and things like that. At the back, as always, plenty of airflow for the mid-range. It's also deadened, so it's a more healthy environment for the mid-range, because people are like, you know, why do you build it so thick? Why do you need deadening on it? Just make a, you know, thin fiberglass layer, trim it, happy days. But the thing is that mid-range plays easily down to 200 hertz, and at 200 hertz you have a fair amount of energy, vibration added onto the pillar, and if it's not rigid enough, not strong enough, then it will show. There's a reason why speaker manufacturers also build rigid enclosures for their speakers, and they don't put them into little cardboard shitty things. Yeah, so that's why we like to build the pillars rigid. So let's put it in, and you will see what it's like in the van. So this part is rather important, so I wanted to find time for this as well. I can't share the whole tuning process and the RTA measurements to analyze it and describe it to you, but when I have time, I'm gonna load that to Patreon, guys. So if you go to description, you find the link to that, where we have an exclusive channel where we can share a lot of behind the scene content and everything. And if you want to learn a lot, then it's definitely the place for you. You wouldn't regret signing up. But we have to show it on YouTube for everyone. So now Eddie's sitting right next to me, creating the scenario as if you had a passenger in a cabin like this, where the mid bass is, I can't even see the mid bass from your leg, mate. It's there. Your whole thigh is blocking the mid range, and even without that, you wouldn't get much mid range coming out of it, and it will show from the other side. So this RTA measurement you see is from the passenger side left mid bass full range. So as you can see, this is what happens in the cabin where you sit. It's not the driver's fault. It's not that the speaker is so shit that it would measure like this. It's the cabin. People always have to understand that you work with the car. You can't work against it. That's why we say that speaker placement is the most important part. But of course, we fully understand when you have to stick to factory locations, then what you get is what you get. And that's going to depend on the car's location and environment. This driver would measure completely different in another car, in the Golf we did last week, or in a larger saloon or an estate. But in a transporter like this with a wall right behind you, that's the response that you get. And almost this is on a 5 dB scale. So what mid-range you get above 300 hertz, you can see that it's such a lower level than the bass it's playing. It's 15, yeah, loads, it's 45, and up there that's 60. I don't even include the peak, where it gives you that really nice and punchy bass range. But below 80 hertz, it doesn't want to produce much bass. I mean, it still plays at down low, but in order to hear it in balance with the upper bass, you will need a rising curve, at least 3 dB per octave, like as I'm showing it. So whatever it's playing down here, it's not enough level. And again, it's not the driver, it's the cabin. In the Golf, we measured it last week, and they were looking pretty good down to 40 hertz with decent level with the right curve. But in this car, because it's a short cab, this cabin has the cabin gain in between 80 and 160 hertz. So the tight kick is great, but anything above that is dead. There's no mid-range or anything like that. You add a tweeter to that, that's the tweeter. From the same amplifier power from the Helix P6. We are sending the same level into the mid-bass as well into the tweeter. And there's not such a big difference in sensitivity in terms of tweeter and the mid-bass. But as you see, this driver is only really functional down there. So in a freeway, we can pull a system now from it, the way we fitted mid-range up on the pillar. So that's going to be just fine this way. But when people just upgrade the factory speaker locations with mid-bass and tweeter in a transporter, as you see, you have no bloody mid-range. And that's exactly what the client had with his two-way, especially passive system before. He didn't have any mid-range in the car. So just keep that in mind. If you spend big money in factory location in a transporter, you can't get much out of it, especially in two-way. So you have to go freeway, you have to go fully active with the DSP, and you have to tune it to get a nice and linear detailed system. So yeah, that's why you have to spend the extra money. Otherwise, there's not much point. Then the other side. We have to show the other side as well, because it's rather important. So the green is left. Then on right, again, very similar. But that has driver's side from right next to my leg. He has even bigger acoustical problems. So as you see, the response is like a bloody comb. It peaks at one place, it has a dip and a cancellation at another place. And above 250 hertz, I wouldn't say this driver is functional. You know, that is really low level. Compared to the tweeter, which is up on the pillar now, which is that. Look at that level difference. It's just, yeah, it's short cabin. It doesn't help. That's why we don't have enough low end from the driver. Because in the Golf, we had really solid response down to 40. And this area between 40 and 100 was solid in the Golf. And up to 250, 300 hertz in that car, it was very, very healthy level. In this short cab, it's not doing much. And that's exactly what some of our clients also say who are planning systems with us, already have a system and they need help to sort it in their vans. One of the guys who's been in contact with me, he has a very great system in a similar size cabin, and he says, Pete, you know, I mute everything and just leave the mid-bass playing and I don't hear anything coming out of them. That's exactly why. And this side is not looking great. I tuned a transporter a few months ago, but that didn't have a back wall. That was a full-size cabin. But even in that one, the bass response was terrible. There was so big cancellation like in this one, 70 hertz, in between 70 and 80. This car is dead. You may hear it perfectly fine or better on passenger side, but where you sit on driver's side, nothing. Then an extortionate, you know, it's almost 18 dB difference up at 90, 100 hertz. So that's mute, peaking, low level, peak, low level, peak. So that's what we have to balance out and tune to hear it evenly. But again, above 250, there's not much point to use this driver in two-way. So please focus on this. Understand car acoustics is a really challenging environment. That's why many people say it's not worth doing anything. But this is where the magic happens with tuning, and that's what the biggest difference, you know, this is what makes the biggest difference in a car. So without this, forget spending more money on equipment or anything like that. If you're not happy, rather come to us, let us tune it if you have a fully active system with the DSP, and then we can evaluate where you are, and then we can tell you the right direction to improve things. Or we just tune it and you might be a happy man. So yeah, this is now rather important. So now we crack on, because we have only a few hours till the customer comes, so we have to tune the car, and then you will see at the end what it sounds like and the customer's feedback. The little details, right? Like the little details. This driver wasn't protected. And when was this fitted in your van?
When was it? What was that?
half a year.
June, July, they done it.
So look at that.
They had a waiting list, so I had to wait.
Look at that. It's corroded. A bit of rain guard would protect that. It wouldn't cause that issue. It's a really fancy looking driver, if anything. And yeah, rather took it out because then this way the whole set can be packed up with the tweeter and the crossover and possibly can be sold on, or maybe the shop may do something about it. We will see. But like, look at the crossover. At least they covered it so it didn't get scratched, but good luck cleaning that off without leaving marks on the crossover. It's just, there's not much pride in this work, is there? Sadly. Here we go. So this is the end that usually we don't have time for, because we have to pack up and leave soon, don't we? So as you could see, the door was deadened outside, inner skin, both sides. Then we also treated the door card and then soundproofed it as well. We had to use new spacers for the mid bass. So we bolted properly onto the inner skin, bolted through with machine bolts and nuts behind it. You can see from the pictures now I'm showing. And standard procedure really. I'm really curious how much it improves the ride quality and how much it decreases the road noise. We will see. We will see once you drive it back home. And you can easily talk. They can't see you. You have to talk.
Yeah, of course.
Because people want and need the feedback from the owners. So nothing fancy, but we have now everything safely mounted down there. The whole rack, Nick fabricated, is bolted down to factory points. Where did I leave the torch? Oh, it's just over there. Let me grab it. So we have that bolt and the opposite one diagonal at the back. I can't even get to or show. There's a bolt down there, difficult to get to, but that's what holds the whole rack down. And it's a two-tier simple rack system. Underneath we have the JL monoblock and the P6 on the top. So now this is rigid. Everything is terminated, all the connections with ferrules, speaker cables, power cables, so nothing is hanging out, no copper strands, nothing that can cause problems down the line. Nice and simple. And then the subwoofer, we didn't do much with it other than what you could see. It was dusty inside, so we hoovered it out, put a new carpet on the top, and it works well. I really like the way it works. How different is it now after the tune?
Night and day. It's much better. Miles better. I'm extremely happy with it.
Because you were saying that you were thinking, even without hearing it, you turned up and you were telling Eddie that possibly you would want a bigger sub.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I had to show to you all the RTA measurements. And guys, again, as I mentioned earlier, if you want to see the full RTA results of this system, and if you want to understand what goes into the tuning side, the whole car acoustics, what you work with or you work against, that tells you what you can do. And I showed that even if we had a larger sub here at 12 or 15, it would be still difficult to play it lower than what it's playing down to. Yeah. What it does down to like 35, it does it well. Up to 80 hertz, it's so musical, punchy, and it has great output. So I can't really fault that sub for what it's doing. So yeah, people just have to be realistic about what can be done in a small cabin like this. So amplifiers all in, and then now we have pillars. We quite prefer the look of the mids without the grill, but the grills are just practical. Nothing is gonna cause damage in the speakers. But as you can see, it's not intrusive at all. In order to make it like that, you could see, yeah, I have to do tricks. We hardly have any tolerance behind the tweeter and the mid-range, but it blends in. We have the right aiming with the tweeters to get the top end out of them. And even driver side disappears pretty well from the driver position. It's not intrusive at all. We have a competition rule where we cannot go any further than 4 centimeter of the black dots. So where you see the end of the black dots, you have 4 centimeter. That's how much you can block from the driving view. I'm just telling it to you as well. It's an interesting thing that, for example, in America, in their competition formats, they don't have this rule. So they can build massive big pods on the dash or blocking the view. It's not an issue.
Yeah.
Whereas it just makes sense. It's common sense that you don't want to block your view because you may miss a cyclist or a pedestrian or anyone. And
especially in a van as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really happy with the way they've come out.
But yeah, in this one, we don't have anything coming away from the line. So that's all from driver's side. Now this is driving position. You don't have anything intrusive. It just blends in nicely. But yeah, I had to cut out the whole pillar to make the tweeter blend in and get it on axis. They play up to 18 kilohertz with ease. They didn't need much push on the top end to make it happen. But yes, when you have tweeters off axis, in most cars, as I mentioned earlier, 8-10K, that's where they start to roll off and you hardly hear any of the detail from the top end. And yet people worry about high resolution and what music streaming service to use or what digital audio player to buy, get the most expensive Aston and Kern, and yet their speakers are installed shit. So wakey, you know, focus on what matters. And then after that, when you got the best out of your speaker installation and your tuning, then you can worry about upgrading things or adding, you know, expensive fancy things to it. Because this system, for what it is, it packs a lot for its price. And well, I wish all transporter drivers to hear something like this one day, because I'm pretty happy with the result, even if we didn't do everything in this van. But what it's doing right now, it's ticking many boxes. Well, to be fair, most of our systems are special in their own ways, and that's why I have to mention it now, but I will have to make a separate video that we will have a car audio meeting on the 18th of December down in Brighton at Brighton Marina. If you want to know more about it, drop a message please, or go to description to contact, and then you can email over there as well. Then I send over the details where it's going to be, what part of the car park. Down at the marina, we will be there from 9 till 4. Plenty of cars, probably like 20-25 cars with great systems, so you can listen to all of them. And we will have dinner and bowling after that too. So it's going to be a great audio day, a lot of fun. So this is where I leave this video right now, guys. Hopefully you learned a lot from this project. You saw what not to do and what to do, what to focus on. And if you have a transporter, drop us a line. We can help you design a great system within your budget. Also, check out description. As always, there are many links there where you can find Patreon and other videos when it comes to fabrication. And ultimately, of course, subscribe to the channel, because otherwise you wouldn't know about us at all, right? That's how you found us. Am I correct about that?
Yeah.
It was all YouTube.
YouTube. Thank you.
So this is where we leave it now. It's time to pack up, go home, and on to other few crazy projects that I can share with you very soon. Take care.